Welcome to On the Brink, a fresh lens to take you and your business to new heights. Hi, I'm Andi Simon. As you know, I'm your host and your guide, and my job is to help you see, feel, and think in new ways about where you are, where you're going, and how to get there better. It's all about change, and you know your brain hates to change. So even when I'm bringing you great people to listen to, it's real important to listen to their stories and think about how their story could be something that would be important for you and the kinds of work that we're doing to help women become the best they can be. So today I have Carrie Peele with me. And Carrie has come to me through the Women Business Collaborative, which is a marvelous organization helping women to become the best they can be. And while we've met and we've talked a little bit, I think her story and what we're all focused on is extremely valuable and important for today to help women break out of being necessity businesses or just small businesses and really grow, because it's time for us to move capital from the guys to the gals a little bit more equitably so that we can have what's needed to scale our business and to grow it. So with that in mind, Carrie, thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you, Andi, for having me.
Tell the listener, as I often ask our interviewees to do, who's Carrie and how we got there. And it's important because I haven't read your bio, but I could, but I think your story is richer than the bio. So tell us about who's Carrie Peele and all the things that matter to you, and then I'll fill in some of the blanks.
Well, thank you, Andi. Well, I was born in a little town called Saxonburg, Pennsylvania, which still to this day only has one stop sign. Very small little town. It's a German town, and if anybody knows anything about Western Pennsylvania, it's a very gray city. It's a lot of snow, a lot of cold, and I just felt I wasn't supposed to be there during all these winters and these gray days. And so when I was finished high school, I took the first job that headed south, and I landed in North Carolina, in which I met my first husband, the father of my children. And in my early 20s, I found myself divorcing with two little small babies, two what I call little princesses. And I realized that my destiny was going to be determined by me and not someone else. And the only way for me to determine my destiny, Andi, was to start my own company. So this is very important back in the early 80s and resonates in my mind every day. And that I started my first company when on the day of my divorce on three credit cards. And you say, Andi, why three credit cards? Because no bank would give me any money.
I was there too. I remember they wouldn't even give you credit cards.
Wouldn't I I think I got three credit cards, Andi, by mistake. In today's world, with all the banks talking to each other, they would never have given me three credit cards. But at the time, back in the 80s, you remember, Andi, is that we were viewed as a pair. And so even though I paid all the bills, I was the breadwinner in the family. They still looked at my husband's credit, and now that he was my ex-husband, I had no credit. So that's why we started with the credit cards. And Andi, it's a funny story on the credit cards. I bought my first luxury vehicle uh, by going into BB&T Bank and taking these three credit cards and taking $5,000 on each of them. So I had $15,000. I told the teller at BB&T, put the money in a brown paper bag and I'm going to give it to that guy out there in the front with the limousine. And I remember the bank teller said, Miss Peele, you want me to put $15,000 cash in a brown paper bag and then you're going to give it to a guy that you don't even know that has a correct title on this car? You've never checked them out. No, I'm believing. I'm believing. And so that's what I did, Andi. And I bought my first luxury transportation vehicle that particular day. Again, the dear Lord looks out for fools like me every day. And it was a it was a good title. It was a good investment. And fast forward 25 years later, we built the largest luxury transportation company in the South.
Wow.
I know.
If I had read your bio, not sure that would ever come through. It's not in the factoids, it's in the experience, isn't it? Wow.
It is. And I share with women that I mentor every day, Andi, that I'm seasoned and I have made every mistake in business that could ever have been made, but I learned from it. And I always used to share with my team, I'm not afraid of you making a mistake. What I'm asking you is not to do it again. So
Yeah.
learn from it and then, um, just don't do it again. And that's been very successful for us. Very, very successful.
And from that transportation company went where?
So in 2014, we went after the largest single event in the state, which was the US Open in June of 2014. And we got that contract. We did 7 figures in 3 days. And on the third day, I sold the company.
Smart lady. That was not a mistake.
It was not a mistake. We had, as soon as we got that contract, we knew that our industry, Andi, was changing. I was special enough to get elected to our national board. And I realized that Uber and Lyft and technology was going to take over our industry. And I didn't believe that our industry was ready to adapt.
Yes.
And so that's when I knew I needed to find the biggest contract I could find in 2014. I also needed to exit this industry on a high note. And that's what we did. So in 2014, our numbers were fantastic. We had 3 cash offers on the third day. I put it out there to the team. Who do they want to work for? And we closed very quickly. And my assistant and I walked out the same day and
A brown
started
paper bag.
Mhm. and started a new adventure.
Ah,
And I learned, Andi, that it's not so much the widgets that you're selling to make you successful, it's the process in which you and your team work. So we could sell anything, service industry, whatever. And so the next adventure that we decided to take on was in the medical world. So I own a vertical within a medical group that does medical documents. So we are in a group of just enormously successful thinkers and um, a team that has medical labs, medical logistics, medical pharmacy, medical nutrition, medical waste, and medical documents. And so we each run our own vertical and we come together collectively to collaborate on accounts and sales. It just works out perfectly. So we have had incredible success where pre-COVID we were somewhere around $50 million, and with all of us together, we're at 500 million 15 months later.
wow.
We have had just incredible blessings where we've onboarded collectively almost 1,800 new employees. We've logged over half billion COVID tests. We've logged over million miles with logistics in 43 states. So, yes, it's been an incredible, incredible journey. And we are truly blessed that we've been able to give back. We support 81 missionaries around the world. We give back to thousands of nonprofits. I always say we make money to be able to give it back. And that's kind of where we are right now in our giving and our purpose driven is mine has been women mentoring, Andi, and women um, capital. Remember, I started because nobody would give me any money whatsoever. So,
Carrie, as I'm listening to you, first of all, I'm so glad I do podcasts. Sometimes I wonder, why am I doing podcasts? Because there's no way I would ever get to know your life's journey the way you've just described it. There's no piece of paper that can capture that, much less all the nuances and the feelings about it. And that celebration the day after the US Open, as you said, oh, I'm out of here. But the ability to, people say I'm a futurist. The podcast was called in the top 10 or 20 podcasts that are futurist podcasts. Well, actually, you were a futurist. You could feel the signals. We didn't expect a pandemic, but in some ways your processes were ready for a dramatic change. And that allowed you to onboard all these people, but also to understand what had to be done to help society, as well as the individuals who had to get the COVID tests and the COVID vaccines and all of the stuff that's going with it. But as our listeners are listening, whether they're in healthcare or otherwise, and about a third of our clients have always been in healthcare. I worked in healthcare for a bunch of years, and it's a different world. But there's a message here about signals, listening, understanding, and knowing about what matters, what risks to take, and what to learn from them. But how to begin to see something bigger. I heard one of the women in my book, Stephanie Briloff, a successful entrepreneur, said, "Think big." Really think big, not little big, big. And it becomes a way of visualizing what you can do. And then all you need is a lot of luck and a little stuff to help you get there. You were particularly interested in sharing with people about capitalizing your business and funding it. Let's talk about what your thoughts are there, what you might be helping them do in some fashion. And then you also mentioned an important word called a mentoring. And in some ways, this is my mentoring. If we could help someone else see something in a fresh way, pick up a client, see it differently, it's a gift. And so your gift to them, let's talk about capital and what do you see and how we can help them.
Sure. Well, as I shared with you, Andi, the two passions that I have are mentoring women to start companies and growing those companies.
Yep.
Only 2% of all women-owned companies are at $1 million or more. So that means 98% are not.
Well, hold a second. For the listener, there are 12 million women-owned companies. And 10 million of those are solopreneurs, and half of those don't make more than $10,000 a year. So on the one hand, we can celebrate how many women-owned companies there are, but if only 2% have reached a benchmark where SBA will even pay attention to you, what's going on? I mean, these are necessity businesses, dog walking businesses, or really businesses? Please continue.
They could be, you could have a dog walking business that's doing over $1 million. But since 2014, I have set aside one day a week, and I do that on Fridays. Every Friday, I mentor women startups. That was my give back. That was my blessing back to saying to the dear Lord, thank you for looking out for me back way, 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 way back. And what I think this world needs is more women mentoring other women to think big. I have this song, Go Big or Go Home. I play it quite often, think of that huge, just great ambition that you have and how are you going to achieve it? And then we just work backwards. And so I mentor women everything from coming out of college for the first year attorneys to where they're not even thinking about getting their name on the door, the partner's door. They're just trying to get out there. No, no, we think big. We think big. The other is in 2014, we got together with several of my closest friends, and we brought Athena of the Triangle. Now, it's a part of Athena International. We are kind of the flagship of Athena International, that we've got Athena PowerLink, in which we mentor women business startups. They get a mentoring team for an entire year, no cost to them whatsoever. How would you feel, Andi, if you were in a startup and you got some of the best financial people every month in your corner supporting you, leadership in the community, leaders that just will say, Andi, I'm right by you for an entire year. We're going to work this together. And then financial, I mean, the best bankers and financial folks in our community say, Andi, I'm right here. I'm going to look at your financials every month and share with you how we can work that to your best advantage. That's one of the things that we do. The other is emerging leaders, is we teach leadership skills to women in the corporate world. One of the things that I share with women every day, is that women leave $1 million on the table over their lifetime because they don't ask for it. I'm not that woman. I am going to teach you, Andi, how to ask for that raise, ask for those contracts, ask for everything that you need to grow your company. And then we've got some other tools in the tool shed of teaching and working with women and diversity startups to provide the resources and provide what you need. I spend every Friday figuring out what Andi needs, what Mary Jane needs, what Susie Q needs. And if I can't provide it, I probably know somebody that can. Mm-hmm. So that is just a passion of mine, Andi, is to helping as many women to where I was at back with two little babies, and making sure that we had food on the table. That was something. And
now, if the listener is a guy or a gal, the issues aren't that different if you're an early stage company.
No.
And I often want to say that to women. It's not that different. My husband's a serial entrepreneur. I've lived for 52 years with a serial entrepreneur. Some work, some don't. And he had private equity with him for 18 years. So somehow it sticks. But the pain of growth it's just difficult. And part of it requires some luck and some smarts and some help. But on the other hand, it requires a leader, whatever you want to call them, to know how to see themselves at the moment and what it is that what the gaps are that they need a hand. And I often find I do mentoring, and I do mentoring for men and women business. And all too often, they have an idea, but they don't know how to take it to the next stage. I work with a $10 million company, want to go to 100 million guy, and he had no idea how to scale. It just wasn't going to take more moms and dads and kids and others to help him get to the next level. I've worked with folks who are at $1 million level and can't quite figure out, what am I missing? There aren't any more hours in the day. And so I'm particularly concerned about educating them on how do you actually see things differently and change and know when to bring in professional managers, others who may have expertise. You know, my husband often laughs about being in the basement packing boxes. He was in the educational testing business, and he had to get those tests out on time. And so all hands on deck. He didn't do that when it turned $100 million. I mean, you knew when you had to change. I have as well. But the thing for our listeners is, Carrie, as you were seeing things grow and they're thinking about it, two or three important things that you want them to remember and focus on. You said the word process before, which I thought was so important. So I preach it. And they often don't know what it is. And they're doers, not builders. And I said, you're more than a carpenter now. You've already got the architecture and you got to build a building. Your thoughts?
Well, if I can just, before we talk about process, go back to the new adventure that we're working on now is a company called Jade Lending. And so we've got some wonderful women friends of mine that we are raising capital, and we're raising $3 million chunks, Andi. So we've got 5 funds that are going to be going, and each have 3 million. Now let's just say that Andi comes to me and says, Carrie, I need to borrow $50,000. I've got this PO that I've got to have $50,000 worth of raw material to make this PO work. Now, Carrie, the bank won't give me any money. My friends and family are tapped out. I really need flexible terms. I really can't pay you for 6 months. But, and by the way, Carrie, you can't take any equity in my company.
And you can't take my house anymore. It's already got
anything. Well, our fund, Jade Lending, will lend to Andi because we're betting on you. 97% of all women pay back their loans, and not saying anything other than just that. So I am going to invest in Andi's company. I'm not going to take any equity share in her. I'm going to give her flexible terms. I am going to provide her referrals. I'm going to mentorship and anything else that Andi needs. That's another mission of ours. It's not a money maker, by no means, but we are setting aside these funds of $3 million and able to give to women startups and minority startups, and because growth takes money. And just like you said, Andi, for you to be able to hire folks, you've got to be able to pay them. And so you have to have money for growth. And that's where Jade Lending comes in. But getting back to your question of the process, a lot of folks understand EOS, the traction methods, level 10 meetings, holding people accountable for what you ask them to do and that sort of thing. And I'll just share one little story with you, Andi, a short story. So my youngest daughter and her entire family moved back in with us during COVID. They bought a large piece of property and going to build their house. And so I said, just come on back in the family. This is going to be great fun. And so my 7-year-old, I said to her the very first weekend, I said, Lily, what's your job? And she said, Mama, I'm only 7 years old. I don't know. I don't have a job. I said, you think about it. You think about it. And Sunday at dinner time, you tell me what you want to be. Well, Sunday rolled around and she said, Mama, I want to be a chicken farmer. So we ordered 75 2-day-old peeps. They came to the farm store. We picked them up. She hand raised them until they were 6 months old, and they started laying eggs. And of course, it was a family, just a family love thing. Her daddy built her chicken hutches. We have electronic netting.
I love it.
Fast forward, Andi, the child has sold over 5,000 eggs, has her own branding, makes all her decisions, tough decisions too. She delivers eggs every Saturday. She has, again, her own branding bags that we deliver them in. And what this has taught her, Andi, is that you can be 7 years old and have your own company.
Yes, you can.
You can be 7 years old and look someone in the eye and say, thank you for your business. I appreciate this. Every Sunday morning, we have an EOS meeting that she knows exactly what she needs to do this week, next month, next year to grow this business.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make any difference whether you're in the medical lab space, in the chicken business, in the limo business. It doesn't matter. It's
It
just
does.
the process, and it doesn't make any difference how old you are either.
Yeah. You know, in my new book, Rethink Smashing the Myths of Women in Business, I almost called what I learned at my grandmother's knee. And I laughed because my grandmother was the matriarch of a family firm. And as a 5-year-old, I remember standing by her knee while she counted the cash. And then I was down in the basement putting clothes on hangers and I learned from her what it was like to run a business. Did I know I was learning? It was just so much fun. So every Saturday I would go down to the business with my mother and hang out with my grandma. And little did I know that's where you learn perspective, life, all kinds of things. That's also where I learned I didn't want to run the business. And so, but it is interesting. Your granddaughter's story is a story. I hope you're writing her book already, because that is a book, isn't it? And she just had a great grandma to help her make that happen. But everybody can have a great grandma just like you. It's very cool. Are you looking, it's interesting. Are you looking for particular kinds of businesses to come in, or doesn't much matter?
It doesn't matter. Jade Lending will help anyone, again, that's in a food truck industry, in a dog walking industry, in anything. The group of accredited investors that have put this money in, some of them said, I want to be there to determine who gets this money, or we have an entire committee of seasoned entrepreneurs that kind of figure it all out. We have statisticians and strategists and that sort of thing. So
the piece that I think is equally important for our listeners or our viewers is that you also need to know what you're going to do with that money and how to ensure that it gets you where you want to go with it. I don't care whether it's $50,000 or $100,000. It's not a lot of money. It's a little money, but you can easily waste it and be no further along when you're done spending it than if you never had it. And so the story and the capacity to understand the stage you're in for your business growth and what's really needed, is that a lot or a little? Is that enough or not? What are the multipliers? It changes you from running the day-to-day to being your granddaughter who can see what you have to do in the next 4 weeks to get someplace. And do you know where you're going? So there's stuff to think about, listeners, about, shall I go down and talk to Carrie about what's possible for me? Because I want to grow from 1 million to 10 million, or I want to grow from 100,000 to 1 million. But I'm not quite sure the things I need and when I need them. And often people give up equity in a business well before they have to, because they have no idea what they're buying or selling. I mean, it is much more important to get the whole picture, not just the money. I mean, I'm glad you had your 3 credit cards, but I have a hunch you had a bigger picture of what you were going to do with that car. and it was an aha moment. The other thing is, don't forget that we decide with the heart. The gut and the heart are connected to the brain. And so you can do all the analytics, but how does it feel? You know, where's the passion and purpose? I do think that we make decisions based on feelings. And so as you're listening, Carrie's built her business feeling, sensing, the signs are coming. Uber's coming. What's that going to mean for our business? What's coming at your business? So as you're crafting that story, looking for funding, it's a good time to think through, what are you seeing? You know, where is the optimism and where's the hope? And it's just an interesting time. Carrie, I'm looking at our time, and it's almost about time to wrap us up. Some final thoughts you'd like to share to help listeners see, feel, and think in new ways, because that's just what my job is, to help them see it all differently.
So one of the nuggets that I give to women who start their own companies is, of course, the day you started is also the day you think about selling it.
Oh, I love it.
You have to have an exit. You have no idea, Andi, how many women and men that I've mentored that said, but this is my legacy, but it's not making you any money. In fact, you're going the opposite way. Change your legacy. The, the day you start is the day you think, when will I sell it? Because it's just a tool to get you to here. And then you're off on a new adventure. So you can write your legacy story as many legacies, not just one.
But the other part is don't let your business become your identity.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the connection to this legacy. What is this legacy stuff anyhow? I've been hearing that so often these days. And really, I think my legacy is helping other people become the best they can be. And it has nothing to do with me. It's how can I help you? And that's a multiplier well beyond business. Careful you don't create the illusion that you are what you do. Because then it's very hard to be reflective on it, and you can't do ever what's going to make you really happy. So the question is, how do you create something that's a good business, and then how do you begin to see your exit to something else that'll take your success, and I'm a collaborative sharer, and you can share it, and that's really what matters at this point. So if they want to reach you, Carrie Peele, how can they do that?
Oh, that's easy. So it's Carrie Peele. Um, you could call my cell phone 919-606-2100. I answer it all the time. My email is carrie@cpeelgroup.com. I work 7 days a week, so don't hesitate. It's what I do, Andi, is not work. I just love doing what I do. So it doesn't make any difference what day of the week it is. So.
You and I have so much in common, and we met through serendipity. I do believe that serendipity is a gift. It matters to us. It's very cool. So I can't tell you what a gift this has been. I can't thank you enough. Let me say goodbye to our listeners. It's been such a pleasure having Carrie Peele here, and I'll have all of her information on our blog post. I do want to remind you that my new book is out, Rethink. As you can see, my Rethink is here. Smashing the Myths of Women in Business is all about women who basically said, of course we can. They said, oh, you can't be a lady lawyer. Of course we can. You can't be an entrepreneur. Of course we can. And we just simply pushed through. But the book has turned into a program that we've launched online called Rethink Your Journey with Andi Simon. And it is all about an online course to help you rethink who you are, where you're going. And it's done with processes grounded in the social sciences and the psychological sciences, the neurosciences. I'm a corporate anthropologist, and I like to make sure there's enough science there so that it's not just hope. It's not a good strategy. But women today are reaching a point where they aren't happy where they are, but not quite sure where they're going to go to be happy. And so my job is to give them a process to help them see, feel, and think in new ways about themselves, where they are now, and where they can see themselves in the future, and then get there, which is exactly what Rethink with Andi Simon is all about. And of course, we have a Facebook group called Rethink with Andi Simon, so come and visit, because we bring on now great women to talk to you about all kinds of cool things. And sometimes it's just a roundtable of women helping women. I do think we're at a point where women can help women in ways that are extremely important and powerful, because who knows us better than each other? It's sort of like, really? And I have lots of men who are joining us as well, which are he's for she's, which is great. Carrie Peele, it's been a pleasure. Thank you again. I'll say bye to everybody. Thank you again for coming. It's been such fun. And share away. Enjoy the day. Stay healthy. Bye-bye.